Hello, my friends, and a good Erev Shabbos to all of you. This is seemingly, should be a sad Shabbos, because this Shabbos is also Rosh Chodesh Av, the beginning of the month of Av, the month that the Beis Mikdash was destroyed on the 9th of Av. And the Talmud teaches us, Mishnichnas Av mematim b'simcha. When Av comes in, we decrease in our joy. But yet, tonight, whereas normally from the beginning of the month of Av until after Tisha B'Av we're not allowed to eat meat or drink wine, tonight we're going to be eating meat and drinking wine. Whereas in the month of Av until after Tisha B'Av we're not supposed to be wearing fresh laundered clothing, tonight we're going to be wearing, or we should be wearing, freshly laundered clothing. So what's going on? It's a very beautiful thought that I'd like to share with you. You see, what is Shabbos? And what is, or what was, the Beis Mikdash? The Beis Mikdash, the temple, was a conduit, a connection between us and God. A person would walk into the Beis Mikdash and he would feel spiritually elevated automatically just by being there. He would feel closer to God just by being in that edifice known as the Beis Mikdash, the temple. Because God's presence rested on that building. What is Shabbos? Shabbos is a day that we have God's presence resting with us. And everything that we do represents that. There are so many things that we're not allowed to do, so many restrictions on Shabbos. What are those restrictions for? Those restrictions are so we can tune out of the physical world and tune into God's world. It's like somebody going to visit the king. And he walks into the palace. And the king wants to talk to this servant of his, but there's so much going on in the palace. There's music, and there's beautiful paintings, and there's art, and there's entertainment everywhere you turn. And the king is trying to talk to this servant, and the servant's head is on a swivel. He can't stop. His ADD is kicking in big time. He's all over the place. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu, God is trying, the king in this case, is trying to talk to this servant, and the servant can't focus. And finally the king says, "Stop the noise." And all the noise stops, the band stops to play, the entertainment stops to entertain, the pictures are covered, and now it's me and you, says the king. Now we can talk. Now you can focus on me. And that's what Shabbos is. Stop the noise. Stop the distractions. Take away all the physical distractions that we have. The telephones, and the televisions, and the computers. Stop. When you're in the presence of the king, you watch your every move. And on Shabbos, we're in the presence of the king. In the Beis Mikdash, we're in the presence of the king. The Beis Mikdash, if you've ever learned about the laws of the temple, they're so minute, such minute detail about what's allowed, what's not allowed. A Kohen is not allowed to serve in the temple if there's a spot on his garment. A little spot. Where do you have such incredible detail in Jewish law other than in the temple? On Shabbos. On Shabbos, incredible detail. Little things that you wouldn't consider important. Pulling a hair out of a glass of milk is forbidden on Shabbos. Separating. Little details. Because when you're in the presence of the king, Little details matter. And here's something interesting. We're taught that if the Jewish people would keep just one Shabbos, as the song goes, just one Shabbos and we'll all be free. If the Jewish people would keep one Shabbos, God would be forced to bring Mashiach and rebuild our physical temple, our physical Beis HaMikdash. Why? Because if we're keeping the spiritual temple, our spiritual conduit between us and God, we're showing our desire to have that connection as a people. God will say, okay, it's time to give you back your physical connection, your temple. I one time said to one of, true story, I was sitting at a Shabbos meal with one of the great rabbis of today, Rabbi Aaron Schachter, the head of a yeshiva called Chaim Berlin in Brooklyn, and one of the foremost Torah sages of today. And he was here in the winter for his health, and I was invited to his Shabbos meal Friday night. And his Shabbos meal was an incredible thing. It was more like being in a Torah class with food on the table. Everything, we were just discussing Torah the whole time. And he was discussing ideas about Shabbos. And he was going around the table how we look at Shabbos, and I understood from a sefer, a book I like to read and learn and teach, called Shabbos Malkasa, which means the queen of Shabbos, the royalty of Shabbos. I said, Shabbos is in time what the Beis HaMikdash was in space. Space not meaning outer space, space meaning space, area. The Beis HaMikdash covered a physical space. Shabbos covers 24 hours in the day, every week. And he smiled at me. And probably one of the biggest compliments I've ever gotten in my life was, he said to the rest of the group, this man is thinking. And that's what Shabbos is. Shabbos is in time what the temple, what the Beis HaMikdash was in space, was an area. Shabbos is a metaphysical temple, metaphysical Beis HaMikdash. The Beis HaMikdash is a physical one. So no, we don't mourn this Shabbos. Because as far as Shabbos is concerned, we're not lacking a temple. We're not lacking a Beis HaMikdash. But in order to appreciate God's presence in the physical temple, you have to go there. You have to be there. In order to appreciate God's presence on Shabbos, you have to be there. Good job.